Peace and blessings. This is Mr. Westbrooks, educator, astronumerologist, and co-host of Unread Book Review with Nick and Rue. Let me put y'all up on this new ebook series that's here to educate our people of all ages, especially the youth, about our collective power, both historically, presently, and beyond. Voices of the Diaspora, written by Knowledge Born Allah, is unique in that it takes the traditional e-reading experience and infuses it with audio recordings, revolutionary songs, and revolutionary music videos. Some of the topics include stories about Black entrepreneurs, stories about Black women who have shaped our world, and stories of Black innovators who've impacted the field of STEAM, plus much more. If you want to know more about this series and what it has to offer, check out our unread episode featuring Knowledge Born Allah, who was also the founder and host of Do the Knowledge Radio. After the interview, go log on to dotheknowledgeradio.com so you can get your copy of Voices of the Diaspora so that you, your family, your community, and your world can be inspired by the stories of visionaries shaping our future and honoring our past. Thank you in advance for your support and continue striving to be the best version of yourself. Peace.
This Ty here, RBG, repatriation of situation. I just want to let y'all know I hear all that shit y'all talking. You know in your heart of hearts you can't fuck with this. You knows that. Why I'm tripping, y'all knows that. Let's start talking, let's get into it. Whoa, hold up, what they talking about? I hear you. Matter of fact, fuck all that they talking about. Fuck all that yakety yak, wanna run they mouth. Machete clappity clap, oh goon run them out. Cross the border, show say arrow, hunt them down. Babaloo, why you clean off, it ain't nothing now. 30,000 in the air, my phone still on. Writing rhymes, earphones, with the kill on. Get the skill on, little homie, the real on. EI's getting the chill on, watching me get my meal on. Take a stand in the wreck, get my build on. You disrespect the whole set and get your still on. Ma do where you can, get your bill on. Debit card swipe up, performance is getting tighter. I'm older and plus I'm nicer, the motion it I sip on. Most of y'all skip the protocol. Trip on forces and slip, bust your head. Train of thought wreck, you there, didn't do what we goon said. Now it's cold red, skeptics is begging to get my heel on. Back like I never left, proper like a sweater vest. I'm the ancestors' favorite rapper, Megadeth. That's true. No guitars though, just a hard flow. That's true. Nicest piece on these beats as far as bars go. A Joshua Eli's on my chest as far as scars go. Stars go to Fargo, stand and rock for photo ops. Bypass their own hood like they don't know the block. Faking culture shots like they forgot them struggles. All the fun when that muzzle blast cats be like. Suffering succotash beats, concrete, street with sophistication. Repat nation, we deep, baby. Plus RBG certified, fly like the butter with the golden box. Cut her hello, yeah. She's so flirtatious, smile like the Nile, her booty so outrageous. Classic yet refreshing, just to know you is a blessing. Peach schnapps and the flukes, here's a toast to patience. Oh well, a closed mouth don't get fed. She came to bed and woke up with your moja on her head. I just wanna see the fam blossom. Inhibitions, I lost them, I'm feeling awesome. My shit. Oh man, Sundiata, I told you they weren't fucking with me, car.
Ask yourself that. Why do you eat food? You need to ask yourself, what is food? Because we got consumables, as acidic, dry, whatever you want to call it, and then we got alkaline, wet, real food. We got fake food and we got real food. Now, you growing up in this world, I don't know how old you is. If you my age, you 20, you 28, 29, we is the last ones to know what real is. These jits don't know what real is because they being raised on the fake. So they put the germ in the seed. Roundup ready. They put the germ in the seed. They got fake seeds. So I'm telling you, this is war.
Yeah.
This is fucking war. You got to learn the real, and you got to decipher from the fake, because it's getting hard to tell. And that's my message.
You got to be able to tell the real from the fake, because it's getting hard to tell. He said, "That's my message. That's our message."
Oh yeah.
So, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio, place for knowledge born. Your host, Knowledge Born Alive. And I'm here with a special guest by special request. One of my magical matriarchs is back in the building, okay? Black people, even if we love you, we'll come see you once, maybe even twice. But if we don't mess with you after that second time, we ain't coming back no more. You understand what I'm saying? So we're very thankful for the presence of one of my magical matriarchs, okay? We in May, so I might have to run back to magical matriarchs in May because we was in March when we were marching forward, okay? So in this Mayflower, first of the month type of energy, we have one who blossoms and blooms as a Black love advocate, wife, mother, auntie, so many of the pantheons of the divine matriarchal power here to show us some love and give us some straightening. You understand what I'm saying? Because we out here flipping a little bit. So we're going to get us together back in line. We got a doula, we got a healer, we got a motivator, we got an inspirer, and we got a truth teller and a truth seeker. So it becomes an honor and privilege at this time to introduce some, present to others, one of my magical matriarchs. In the fullness thereof, Empress Eshe Obasi is in the
Well,
building.
go ahead. Hey, man. I'm telling you, man. Y'all don't know, man. Every time I come on here, the intros be hot, man. I'm telling you. But you know what? I appreciate what you do so much because, man, this platform has helped me to be able to really, really, get a grasp on my feelings on a lot of different things, and also to be able to work on articulating and be able to connect with, being in conversation with somebody because, that energy exchange, that vibe be something for real. And it's always a vibe whenever we get on here, big bro. Always a vibe, man. Come on now, why going? Come on.
Hey. Wagwan, what y'all deal with?
Come on, man. They don't
I
know.
love it. I'm telling you. I am telling you. Let's start there. Your platform is so awesome, like so amazing. The things that you touch on and in the manner in which you do it, you find a balance in humor, uh, information, straightening, all of the above. Like it's a myriad of ways you present it. And your ability to remain objective, I believe, is a skill that needs to be studied. So, you know, putting this together, tell us about my new boys. Tell us about your podcast. Tell us about what you got going over there. And that, hey. Why going? What y'all deal with?
Why going? Wow. That combination that you talk about is really one that had to be developed over time. The concept of my new voice was really once I became an adult, once I kind of came into my own discernment. What do I think? What do I feel? What really are parts that I just was doing or saying because, I was in my parents' house? Or what parts do I really feel and am passionate about? You know what I'm saying? What do I feel about a lot of brand new things that I'm experiencing? So when I think about the beginnings of it, it really was just that. It was kind of my own experimentation grounds. Um, when I started, I wasn't even doing the videos or the podcast as they are now. More than anything, I was just going live. I was like, man, whatever come out my mouth is what's gonna come out my mouth. Um, and I kind of have a philosophy in life. Sometimes you just have to start. Sometimes you may not have all the resources. Sometimes you may not have everything planned out. Sometimes you just have to start. And sometimes things develop from there. And, my husband was the one who said to me, like, baby, you really should, look into doing a podcast or something. I'm seeing people do podcasts and stuff. And like, man, the stuff you're talking about, like, you really are able to articulate some stuff that people may not know how they want to say it or whatever. And I kind of was like, for a while, I'm like, I don't know if I can do all that. But it began to develop. I just kind of started. I just was like, okay, I'm gonna record it and see what ends up happening. Um, and it started going. It started being like, okay, but I kind of felt like I was just talking for a long time. I was like, I kind of feel like I'm lecturing or something, like, and it can be a little bit daunting when it's just you and the camera and it's just like, sounds like, man, I'm gonna say some funny shit. I don't know. I'm gonna just say something funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I started saying funny stuff, doing funny stuff in the editing, because that's also a part of who I am. People see a grand majority of me being very serious, but I have a very funny, sarcastic side to me also that people don't get to see. So that kind of came into fruition where I was like, I'm gonna do the editing, and I may not be overly goofy, but I may just put some silly shit just in there as far as in the clips that I use or whatever. And it really kind of does that for me. You know what I'm saying? So I enjoy being able to do that. And then lastly, as it relates to being able to be very neutral and unbiased with a lot of things, I think that I've had to come to that point because there are so many extremes. And those extremes is either this or is that. You know what I'm saying? And in some cases in life, that is the truth. But I think in a lot of cases in life, that doesn't have to be so rigidly the case. Sometimes you can say, hey, I might not agree with you on this, but I might also say, but I do agree with this and I understand how you feel. And I am a very much so extreme person sometimes. I can be. I can be a very extreme person, like, no, it's either this or that. But I'm also a Libra. So sometimes you have to be that voice of reason for yourself. Yeah, you got to be that voice of reason for yourself sometimes to say, this might be why they're saying that. Okay, let me look into the other side of it also, and let me just look at all the information and take my emotions out of it. And sometimes that's the thing that can help you see the broader picture and understand. So that didn't develop until later because, like most people, you got your opinion and your opinion is your opinion. You know what I'm saying? But more so looking at myself as a narrator and even at times a reporter. Maybe it's not my job to bring my opinion to this one. Maybe for my job as it relates to this is really to just find as much information as I can and from an unbiased perspective and piece it together. And I can say one of the times that was the hardest for is the Carmelo Anthony thing. It was very hard because there were so many very emotional opinions as it related to that. But I had to be objective, even to where Black people was like, no, no, no. But I had to be objective and say, I know we want to say that this is the case, but we don't know yet. You know what I'm saying? And I had to give some unpopular opinions, as I am popular for giving unpopular opinions. But, to say, yeah, it does sound like self-defense. But until we know all of the facts, you know what I'm saying? We still don't know what's going to happen. So to be able to sometimes be the voice of reason that people don't want to hear. But, so that's what I would say for that. And I know I gave a long answer, but.
We needed every bit of that long answer. Don't you dare. Don't even start. We ain't starting like that. We ain't never start like that, so we ain't going to start now. Okay. The answer is your answer. Unpopular opinions. I know we're about to delve into the movie, but what would you say are your top three most unpopular opinions where people was like, yo, what is she talking about, fam? What happened? What's your view? What you talking about, fam? Like you had him in the chokehold, okay? You had him in the chokehold.
The first two is going to be pretty easy, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of thinking for the last one, so I'm going to save that for last, right? But the first two is pretty easy. First and foremost, we're in a very, very feminist time period, and I would never consider myself to be a feminist, although I do think that women and particularly Black women, because my interest is always with us first, need to be able to, have rights. We shouldn't be slapped around. We shouldn't just be getting raped and all of these things. I do believe that. However, I believe that feminism as an entity had a part in destroying the Black family. And I think that to this day, what we see as modern day feminism is in opposition to family in general, and then Black families specifically. Always say that I feel like what the original feminists did is, because they needed Black women for their movement, they turned around to us and they convinced us that the things that the white men were doing to them, our Black men were doing to us. And that was not the case. And so they passed that hate on to us for Black women to inflict upon Black men. But Black men weren't even in a position to do the same things to us that white men were doing to them. So they were never our enemy, but they convinced us that Black men were our enemy. And so I would say that's an unpopular opinion that I have, because a lot of the time I'm not the one that's just going to jump on a Black woman's team just because she's a woman. Now, if you want to say because she's Black, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to be the one to agree with a woman just because she's a woman. I'm the one that's going to say, no, we need to be able to take ourselves, hold ourselves accountable and take responsibility for the role that we as Black women have played in a lot of things. And that usually will, have them calling me a pick me. They will be like, anytime that I say, well, to be honest with you, I do depend on my husband. I think that, you know what I'm saying? I do, listen to my husband's leadership and allow him to be a leader. And I do, all of these things don't go over well. We're in a time period where women is like, no, because that's subservience, and they're trying to have us barefooted and cooking in the kitchen and all of this stuff. And I'm like, so I would say that that's one of the main things that is the biggest controversy about me as Empress Eshe. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just not going for all that male bashing shit. I'm not the type of person that I'm not going to sit around you and bash all men because you picked the wrong man. And that is the situation that you ended up with. You ended up with a cheater. You ended up with somebody that left you, or you ended up with somebody that played you. Sometimes we have to take responsibility that we may not have picked a good person in this case. That doesn't mean that men are not good people. Right. So I would say that's the main one. Next, after that, I'm Pan-African. And we're moving into a time period, and we'll get more into this, but we're moving into a time period where Black people in America are seeking to delineate. You know what I'm saying? So the connection between Black people in America and Black people in Africa and Black people in Jamaica and Black people in Latin America is really beginning to close now, to where Black people in America are like, no, just us. And not only is it just us, but F y'all too. You know what I'm saying? So me being Pan-African is one of the things that, number one, has always been a standout about me, because I've been in this, mindset, cultural aspect since I was born. And so, of course, I got opposition from it as a little girl, you know what I'm saying, before I really knew why somebody would oppose that, from family members, from everybody that was around. And then growing into now as a grown woman, you know what I'm saying? Now that the world is changing, there's even more opposition to the mindset of being Pan-African. For the last one, yeah, I think I would say the understanding of family and roles in the family. I think that I would say that because I think that they've been so misconstrued in this time period. And I think that the understanding that as man and woman, we are not supposed to be in competition with each other, but we are supposed to be balancing each other out. Now, you wouldn't think that this will be an unpopular opinion, but because of certain things, now there's this ideology of trying to be equal, right? And what equality really ends up meaning is, I want to do what men can do as a woman. I'll tell you this. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she's very like, I can do this. I can pick up heavy stuff and stuff like that. And she's strong, right? She can. But sometimes I will tell her, no, you know, let some of the men do it. Not because I want her to not be able to do stuff, but because I want her to also see there's things that we're supposed to do, but there's also things that they're supposed to do. You don't have to be the strongest in the room because we have protectors. We have people that are here to do that. Now, for us, what we are here to do, we're here to be the lovers. We're here to be the nurturers. We're here to be the caretakers. We're here to, you know what I'm saying, to be the teachers. We're here to, and I think that a lot of women feel like that really weakens our position. But to me, I feel like that's our strength as women. I feel like that's the thing that makes us strong in our femininity. I feel like that's the thing that we should celebrate more so than trying to make it seem like something that's so monolithic. So, those are my 3. I probably have more, but
Bars. Okay. Bars.
oh
So
yeah.
somebody will listen to you say all of that and be like, so you're anti-woman, you anti-Black
Yeah.
America, and
Oh yeah. I've gotten all of that. I've gotten
and
all
you
of that.
subservient. Okay. Like,
I've
yeah.
gotten all of that. I have gotten all of that. And I think I'm so used to that being the takeaway that I just go ahead and hit all those marks first. Just so you know. No, I don't hate women. No, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I appreciate the accomplishments of Black Americans. Hello. My family's from here. Unlike some people may end up thinking, I'm not from Jamaica, even though I say Wagwan. My husband's from Jamaica, but not me. I'm not from Jamaica. I think it's hilarious. You know what? I smile every time somebody says that. Go back to your country. I be like, ooh, baby. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm on the way.
Uh.
So, one of your most recent videos, aside from Uncle Shannon, I think we could just blend that together. Uncle Shannon and Ryan Coogler, FBA statements before we get into the movie, because these are kind of like the backdrops, right? The backdrops,
Okay. Ooh, you want to start with that? Okay.
happening, right? Um, what was your goal in these 2 analyses in particular, with Shannon and with Ryan Coogler in the film?
Okay. I'm gonna start with the Shannon Sharp thing, just so we can start on a lighter note. When I seen what happened with his situation, I watched, immediately began watching how people was going to respond. The majority of Black people, of course, was like, "Oh man, he got set up." You know what I'm saying? Of course, we know he didn't do this, and I think from the beginning, I just didn't believe that it was a situation of, sexual assault. I guess it was kind of like, come on now. I believe that it was a little bit too easy. It was a little bit too obvious. It was like, it felt like a setup, right? But I saw people's responses began to change when they realized who the woman was. Number one, because of age, and number two, because she was a white woman, right? So, you know what I'm saying? I gotta quote this: Black queens forever, snow bunnies never. I gotta throw it in there. Okay. I had to put it in there, okay? Because you don't know how much people have been saying that during this whole thing. So it's made me have to even kind of see how I feel about certain things. Number one, I'm going to just give this for context. I feel like most definitely they made something into a situation of like sexual assault out of a situation that seemed consensual. And this is why you got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? And really know who you're dealing with. Because it seemed like because they clipped the videos and they only used parts of them, and they tried to kind of cherry pick from what actually happened, and they didn't tell the whole story. You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely feel like that was the case. I definitely feel like he made a rookie mistake, which, he up there in his 50s, so he shouldn't have made this rookie mistake. You was messing with a young girl. You was really only kind of coming from a place of, being kind of sexually undisciplined. We understand men are more sexual in nature, but it's kind of like you got to know where to reel it in. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like he made, if anything, that's what I would say that was his crime, so to speak. I think that he should have paid more attention to some of the signs. And that phone call, when they played that phone call, it sounded so much like a setup. It was like, she obviously is setting you up. Like, this does not sound authentic in any sense. She does not sound afraid. She doesn't sound like she really doesn't want to get choked. I mean, come on now. Like, but I guess for me, it made me have to kind of look into the age thing, right? Because of course the argument is a minority versus not a minority as it relates to age. Of course, some people are saying, no, she's too young anyway because she has teen behind her age. I feel it. She was young as hell. But I think we have to look at this in two aspects now. Are we talking about from the perspective of moral, or are we talking about from the perspective of law? Because just because something is morally not what you think should be the case, don't mean somebody can go to jail for it. However, if she would have been 17, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where all the difference is made, because then you would be looking at statutory rape. So it's kind of like, it made me have to, again, be more unbiased to say, hey, he got this little young white girl, but then also kind of, okay, now, but we're dealing with a factor of law as well. And then kind of having to add that into there. One does not make the other untrue. You know what I'm saying? There's no way he should have been messed with a 19-year-old girl. But I feel like we have to side by side. So it's an and not a but. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we also have to look at the fact that in the eyes of the law, it's not illegal. So that would change everything if it were something illegal that happened. So overall, the situation is kind of messed up. I know he lost his contract with ESPN, I believe. So it's kind of like, yikes. But eventually this was going to kind of come around, and she got you. Like, so as it relates to Shannon Sharpe, that really is kind of I more so wanted to talk about that and bring that to the forefront, because I felt like there was so much social commentary surrounding it that you kind of have to peel back the layers and look at, well, what really is going on. I know that some people felt like when you're a black man and you have some level of money or power or clout, they coming after you. And I do believe that that's true. I do think there's some significance in them using Tony Busby as her lawyer. I do think that there are some things behind that. You know what I'm saying? But I do think also, and it's a little shady, so I'm just warning you, it's gonna be a little shady. This is just a case too of plain old stupidity also, because it's like, bruh, you fell for it. You know what I'm saying? So as it relates to Shannon Sharpe, man, that much is how I feel as it relates to that, right? So, but as it relates to the whole thing with Ryan Coogler, now this is where it's going to get a little bit more deep, because I have to get a little bit more into something that may be controversial, right? So there was a clip that was going around. There was a clip that was sent, put on a page by Tariq Nasheed. It was clipped to show a part of an interview that Ryan Coogler had. He was asked a question about, why twins? What made you choose to have the main character, in this case, be characters? Because it was the twins, right? And in answering that, he says, okay, well, being somebody that is foundational Black American, I'm a Black American, right? And right before he goes into the rest of what he's about to say, the clip stops. Now, I found the rest of that interview, and my husband actually showed it to me. He was like, you got to see this. The rest of the interview actually says, because Black people in America, actually, he references us as African people in America, foundational Black Americans. He says, come from West Africa. We originate from West Africa, right? And he goes forth to explain as it relates to Black people in America being connected to West Africa. And he says the thing that made him choose twins was because in Nigeria, in the Yoruba tradition, in the Ifa tradition more specifically, which is something that I have the privilege of knowing a little bit more about. He says that there are twin deities. Now, these twin deities, he doesn't mention this, but just for the information in the show, they are known as Ibeji. They are known as like prosperity Orisha, right? Or deities. And Ibeji is in essence one deity. So it's not called Ibejis like plural. It's one deity, even though it's twins. So that really kind of shows more of a duality. What I also found out, just as an FYI, is that the names that the twins had in the movie, Elijah and Elias, are in essence the same name, right? So I was like, oh, he knew what he was doing. However, there was a frustration that I had with the clip that was originally shown in that video, right? Because the video clipped the part where he said the words FBA, Foundational Black American, but they did not go forth into the part where he spoke about foundational Black Americans or African people in America being from Africa and being from West Africa specifically. And I was very frustrated with that because I felt like that was done on purpose. Why would you do that though? Unless you're trying to use his words to fuel something for what you have going on, because you would not do that in any other instance. Why would you be threatened by that? As you know, the FBAs believe that Black people didn't originate in Africa. The Black people over here in America, specifically in North America, did not originate in Africa. They say that when the the transatlantic slave trade happened, yeah, a handful of us came over here, but most of us was already here, right? Now, I want to clarify this. There were indigenous people in America before slavery happened, right? But I would have to ask the question, if they didn't have a need to go over to Africa because there were so many of us already here, why would they have done that? Because there was not enough of us over here to have fueled slavery if they hadn't went to Africa and brought us over here into Africa. Most Black people in America, if you was to do a blood test, you would see that first West African, some form of West African, whether it's Ghanaian, whether they're from Guinea, whether they're from Benin, that is always usually the biggest percentage. So my frustration is, now you have somebody who is saying foundational Black American, right? But he's speaking about the origins being from Africa. But if you cut that part, then you would think, well, he's just giving us a shout out. And I was very frustrated that this is the clip that's being spread, right? Now, I feel like the sense that it's usually used in as far as foundational Black American, the only issue that I have with it is not because we're talking about Black people in America. I think that we are a beautiful and resilient people here as Black people in America who have been able to rebuild our culture and hold on to the pieces of the African culture that we brought with us and be able to have so many accomplishments. My issue is that trying to make the separation with African culture. And I feel like that's what the FBA movement tried to do with this movie. I listened to Tariq Nasheed's radio show and he spoke about the movie. He did a movie review and he talked about, because I know we're about to talk about this, so I'm trying to kind of not go into it until we go into it. A scene where it was a very transcendent scene in the movie, and that scene showed pictures from the past that connected to the future as it related to Black music. Now, in that particular scene, there was representations from Africa. There was representations from the blues. There was representations from funk, and there was representations from early hip hop all the way to people crip walking and all different type of stuff. And it was beautiful. But as he's describing the scene, he does not mention the African representation in the scene. And I'm like, so this is what this is about. And I feel like my frustration with the fact that this movie is now being used to as a blast for the FBA movement, instead of, we can appreciate FBA culture and we can appreciate our African ancestry. It's just cutting that part out. And that's the only issue that I've ever had as it relates to the FBA movement, is the cutting out of the African source and the delineation from other Black people who come from Africa. And I'm gonna stop there. Oh yeah.
Drop the bomb in case you want to go back and make a clip out of that part right there. You understand? Or a couple of clips, because you can drop some bars. So I'm like, let me just let it simmer, let it marinate.
It's been building.
Right. I love your analysis on both of the instances. That's why I asked you instead of inferring, because it demonstrates, what I said earlier, your ability to be able to wield and report on something devoid of having a personal stake either way, right? Even though you still give an analysis from a personal perspective. With
I
someone,
want to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The only thing I was gonna say, I want to be clear about something too. It's not always easy to look at something without emotion. And I'm not going to lie to you, some things I'm not able to just look at without emotions. And I want to be clear about that too, because I don't want to make myself seem like, you know what I'm saying, I'm just able to do that with everything. I am a woman and I am a Black woman, and I have my own politics as far as life as well. And some things are very personal to me. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's love. I mean, it's supposed to be. You see what I'm saying? You supposed emotion is proof of life, like the rise and fall of your chest. You see what I'm saying? Like your pulse, like the blood coursing through your veins. These are all proof of life. So when you add that energy and motion and you emote, that's beautiful. So yes, what I wanted to say is, when I have these discussions from a religious perspective, when I have them from a spiritual perspective, when I have them from a political perspective, I say that people are entitled to have their perspective, and I respect their perspective based off of how they come. I don't have to be anti something to be pro something, right? Quote unquote, right? That's what we say. So if, like with the Israelites, like I know a billion Israelites. You understand? I know Israelites from Africa to Brooklyn. I understand when you are in an organization or you're in a particular space, you have to toe the party lines, and that's it. You see what I'm saying? So if you're an Israelite and I'm a Muslim, it don't make you less of an Israelite or more of an Israelite to demonize me. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
oh, he a Muslim. The hell with him. You see what I'm saying? Like, nah, you're an Israelite. So spend your time propagating your way of life and how it's beneficial for your people. Do that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And if you're a Muslim, the same thing. Whatever that spiritual or religious ideology that you connected with, everybody, all of them welcome here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All of them welcome here. And I had all of them on, right? Even the atheists, whomever, whatever, right? That's what you do. I understand that people when they get triggered, when people start talking about their way of life, or they go back and forth with this debate situation, and this debate debauchery uh, brings a lot of those things to light. So I'm like, with those people, just like with FBA, just with ADO's Pan African, right? Blah blah blah. Those are their perspectives. If this is where you stand and this is how you build and this
Yeah.
is how you moving, then popularize that. You see what I'm saying? Go on that
Yeah.
campaign. You don't have to disrespect Africa to big up
Yeah.
and validate your stance as an American. If you're an American,
Oh
just
yeah.
be an American. You understand what I'm saying? And if you Pan African, be Pan African. It like so it goes both ways. The shots get thrown back and forth. You see what I'm saying? Like all
Mhm.
pretendians and all that. People have their own cosmology. Allow them to have the space for their own cosmology and let them
Absolutely.
be great. Just don't be poaching. You understand? So
That's the
those
thing.
ones who got the orientation, you good over there. Be over there. Don't be over here trying to recruit and pour people over there. Then that's a problem. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? That's a
Yeah.
problem. You
Absolutely.
become a predator in that sense. And we hunt
Yeah.
predators. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, so that was the point in regards to what it is. Because I got people on every side, and they're entitled to their perspective. The
Absolutely.
thing that we suffer from the most is not being seen and not being heard. I was just discussing that last night with Jay Mills and his fiance Dana. Shout out to Dana After Dark. Amazing people, right? We suffer from not being seen and not being heard. You see what I'm saying? One or the other or both. So in that space, when people come with their ideology or what they have, like the entire rest of the planet, they do this all the time. They just don't show it to you. They do this all the time. Like they're like,
Mm.
oh, we not unified. Nobody's unified, fam. Everybody's at war. Okay? Like,
Yeah.
if you don't believe me, if you've never seen a Protestant and a Catholic, they're both Irish and
Right.
they're at war with each other. You better get it together. If you ain't never seen an Iraqi who's a Shiite or who's a Sunni, go at it. You bugging out. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are tribal wars and ideological wars that happen when people come together. Either they come together to know each other, they'll be at war with one another. And war is prescribed so that you may know somebody. You understand? So if you look at your friends, and if y'all ain't never have no disagreement or no fight, I don't even know if y'all really know each other. So once it's said and you can reconcile or y'all separate, whatever the case may be, it is what it is. When I was young, we fought each other. And after we fought each other, we pieced it up and that was that. So my friends, we went to battle together. Either we fought people together or we fought each other. One way or another, we knew who somebody was and what they was capable of. So, respect to the myriad of perspectives because we are diversity and we are inclusion. You see what I'm saying? So what they do, diversity, equity, inclusion, that's us because we accept anybody from anywhere. We accept anybody from anywhere, and we try to make them us. We'd be like, yeah, come on, yeah, come over here. You understand? Like, so if that's how the raisins get in the potato salad. You understand? When you just start letting people in from everywhere, and then the raisins and the chow mein and the sauerkraut and all that shit get in the potato salad. So the stuff that they ain't supposed to be in there somehow it finds its way in there because that's how
You
it
know what?
happens.
That was the perfect way to describe. That was a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah. So I let everybody be great and let them do what they need to do. And the things that you feel strongly about, you're supposed to be. That's an inclination for you. So you're supposed to be, in that space. So yeah, I know you had something. You had something to say. Oh, you good?
Right, look like I got something to say.
I want to make sure before we get into the movie because everybody here, for your movie review, your breakdown of this
Well,
film.
the biggest thing that I have to say is that I feel like there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody to be amazing and outstanding inside of us being people of African descent. There's room for Black Americans. There's room for Black people in Jamaica, in Latin America. There's room for Black people in Africa, in England even. There's room for that. But I think we don't have to turn on each other and start trying to push each other away. You know what I'm saying? We can, exist. We can invent things of our, you know what I'm saying? We can express things. We can create music, create all of these different things without having to push away from or downplay, you know what I'm saying, Black people in other places or the source that we all come from. So that's the last thing I got to say before we talk about the movie stuff.
So let's play a song real quick, and we come back and we get a chance to start fresh on
Okay.
the movie. Tell somebody to tell somebody. We're about to get into Sinners right now. We're Empress Eshe. Tell somebody to tell somebody, okay? Because it's about to get hot. Okay, she got the red on for a reason. All right.
Yeah.
So it's about to get hot.
That gangbang stuff not in me. I'm getting some money. Stiglo, aka chasing money. That's my game.
Being dead broke is the root of all evil. When you got this money, you can do a lot with it. When you ain't got no money, you can't do nothing. You thinking of ways to get it. People will rob for this money, kill for this money, steal for this money, scam for this money, script for this money, sell dope and take trips for this money. But when they ain't got it, they'll come kill you about that money. Nigga, set your ass up in the motherfucking jam about this money. Nigga, snitch on you about some money. So why we take money so motherfucking lightly? You got the value of $1, but you gotta understand it ain't gonna never stay in your pocket. It gonna go from your pocket to his pocket to her motherfucking wallet.
It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. How you gonna eat? How you paying your rent? Where you gonna sleep? You sleeping on the tent? You living on the street? You sleeping on the bench? I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside, now we're outside mix.
So I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside, now we're outside mix.
Cause I don't so dimes, I don't so nicks. Plug with the plug, cause my man so bricks. With the water town with the OT trip. We made a bad steak with the OT flip. I don't so music, so CDs. Sold a bunch of movies, DVDs. And Goodman Plaza, we all made cheese. To securities, to call the police. I done posted up with the hot dog cart. All beef dogs with the meat sauce mark. I can bring it back, come again, restart. But now I got a maze, so let we talk. Old school tab with the marker, we sharp. Down to the dawn, in the water, we sharks. Old school tab with the marker, we sharp. We can mark it anywhere in the Moscow art. You can pump blood through my vein like heart. Don't let the bull fly, bull's eye, that starts. Just in the parking lot, in the car, we park. With the music turned up, inside we spark. Rolling up tree with the backwood bark. Pocket full of vapes and they all smart car. Separate day from the light like dark. And we bring green back like the month of March. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register until the cashier won't cash back. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register until the cashier won't cash back.
You supposed to have more than you show and speak less than you know about this money. Cause once people know about this money, they gon' come get this money. And if you don't give it, they gon' take this money. And if you still in their way about this money, they gon' kill you about this money.
Forward. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Empress Eshe about to give us her perspective, breakdown, and review of this awesome movie that got the people talking. The people is talking. The people is going. It is happening. Sinners in the house.
It's crazy. I've seen people say they was like went to go see it like 3 and 4 times. And this was all before I seen it. So I was like, well, what happened in the movie that people are seeing it this many times? I was seeing so many spoilers before I saw it. It's crazy. But okay, the broad strokes of it as it relates to this movie, and then we could get into the details. Um, I'm first going to talk about the things that I appreciated about it because there was a lot of effort to add a whole bunch of different diverse ideas as it relates to spirituality and as it relates to culture. The first one that I'm going to bring up is the one that is the most talked about, which is the concept of hoodoo. And hoodoo is, basically it's an American interpretation. The black people in America were not able to in essence practice, the different spiritualities that we brought over here. Everything had to kind of be a lot more masked versus where in places like Jamaica or in, what I'm saying, Latin America, they were able to hold on, a lot more to the traditions, the music and everything like that. Over here, we had to, everything was very much so stricter during slavery to where we had to be a lot more careful. Hoodoo originated in New Orleans. So I thought that was very, I really like the fact that they brought that into the movie and, you know, basically showed you, the essence of it. And it was in a little bit more of a, um, very clear, very like, what I'm saying, like a little bit less of a masked way. So they did show, very clearly like her creating the juju bag and what I'm saying, like the different things, like even him going to the grave and there being like almost something akin to an altar as it relates to that, because there wasn't really a gravestone. Showing her in the Botanica, that was like her magic store, and all of those different things. So they were very much so more open rather than just kind of showing little bits and pieces of it. They were very kind of open about what it was. So that's the first thing. I liked the aspect of them adding the Asians in there because I think that it taught me something that I didn't know, right? I have never really heard about the presence of Asians during that time period of history and their significance in black communities and different stuff like that. So learning about the Delta Asians and different stuff like that, that kind of opened up for me to learn about that because I didn't know as much about that. The fact that they had a store on the black side of the road and a store on the white side of the road, it was like, wow. And in the midst of seeing a lot of these things, like I said, it prompted me to, learn more information about that. Um, I liked the fact that, you know, black music really was seen as something magical, was seen as something like a portal. And so I really did like the fact that they brought, the feeling of that. So when we get into, the scene that is kind of like, very famous at this point is, which is the juke joint scene, where you see him conjuring these spirits and you see this beautiful array of culture. You even see, Asian culture portrayed in there, which I didn't expect that. It was like, okay, that's unpredictable. But you even see that, you go from seeing a man playing the electric guitar and then you see the girls twerking and then you see, so it was an experience. That scene was really, truly an experience. Um, you know, the factor of showing different aspects of black culture around that time. Obviously this was pre-integration. So really just kind of showing what life was like for black people at that time. Um, the concept even of the black church in the way that, they pretty much rejected anything that was not them. You know what I'm saying? Like anything as it related to music that was just considered the devil's music. So those are the aspects that I really appreciated as it relates to the movie and everything. I think that I want to start with that because from this point, I am going to offer some ideas about the movie and some things that I thought about it, because I try not to go into it like, okay, this is just going to be an amazing movie. I try to go into it a little bit more objectively than that, so that I can kind of see how I really felt. Okay, so overall, I think that he did do a good job with the production. My first thing that I would say is that I had to do a lot of watching movie breakdowns and reviews, and even look up some of the things that he may have said about the movie to be able to understand some parts of it, because I felt like um some of the things weren't really apparent, and may have even been a little bit confusing as far as the storyline, right? So now I'm talking more so about storyline rather than the stuff that he talked about. I feel like they could have built the characters up a little bit better, to where I felt like we needed a little bit more as it related to the twins. I wanted to know more about, you know what I'm saying, like their background and everything. I wanted to kind of know a little bit more as it related to Sammy. I wanted to know, you know what I'm saying, like even once we got into the aspect with the vampires, they really kind of just kind of came out of nowhere, and it was kind of like we could have stood to know more as it related to the Native American characters. So a lot of these things are like a good thing still, and more, I just wanted more of it. You know what I'm saying? Just from my perspective, I felt like we could have had more as it related to that. Storyline wise as well, like I mentioned before, I feel like the vampire movie aspect of it, it came at an odd part in the movie, and then it kind of took over. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if it was going to be a horror film, maybe we could have brought them in a little bit earlier. Or maybe we could have had a little bit more build up to there being vampires. And then I think that, like, I saw a review, and one of the brothers was saying that the vampires represented, you know, white supremacy. It represented all of these different type of things. But I feel like with using the characters that they did to be the vampires, these characters seemed a little bit less in tune with racism, because they were Irish. They kind of was like, I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, where the black people was looking at them like, oh no, y'all white, y'all ain't coming in here. You know what I'm saying? It was almost like the white dude who was the what was his name? Remick. Like, he may have been a little bit less in tune with racism, and it almost made him seem like he was just a lover of music. But I was like, if the point was going to be showing them as like culture vultures, I would have liked for that to be more apparent. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of felt like we could have played that up just a little bit more. We could have made the horror aspect of it a little bit stronger if it was going to be a horror movie, because the classification from what we ended up looking up, the classification of it was horror slash adventure. And I felt like if it was going to be a horror movie, there could have been more signs of that earlier in the movie. Loved the aspect of the twins. Man, Michael B. Jordan did amazing with that. I'm not gonna lie to you, just like two completely separate personalities, and like he bodied both of them. So that was amazing. I would say him as an actor, he is really shaping up, you know what I'm saying, through all of the roles that he's played over the years. And I love the fact that him and Ryan Coogler worked together. Um, so most definitely, I would say my initial thought, and this is something that's a little bit more personal as it relates to the spirituality side. Um, I feel like I'm always very hesitant anytime that they do use aspects of hoodoo or anything like that in association with a horror movie. I think that it then becomes looked at as like black magic or like witches or like something scary. And you know, because there's always so much of that, and there's an oversaturation of the opinion that, you know, African magic is like it's scary. Um I was very hesitant about that once it did become a horror movie, because I know that there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, the movie's demonic." And you know, I would say that this may not have been a reason, but the horror aspect of it kind of didn't help. You know what I'm saying? To where her magic and the things she was doing in it absolutely were not demonic. And that's the part that was kind of hard for me to tussle with, because then in addition to it being something that is demonic, which is vampires, you know what I'm saying? Then it kind of is like, it makes it hard to say, no, the movie's not demonic. You know what I'm saying? Because then you have something that's supposed to be horrific in amongst it. So, but okay, I recognize that it was supposed to be a horror movie, and that kind of changed my perspective once I found that out. I kind of was like, I think that it read more as a period piece. And I think that it came across more like it was going to be about the aspect of Black music. And I feel like that kind of was taken over by the vampire piece once it came to a certain point in the movie. Um, I wanted some sort of conclusion as it related to the magical aspect, the hoodoo aspect, and the music aspect. It kind of seemed like it stopped being about either one of those once the vampire came in there, because the stuff that they were doing wasn't necessarily hoodoo. The stuff that they were doing was associated with vampire lore. Like as it relates to garlic, garlic is one of the things that they say in their lore, that vampires are, you know what I'm saying? Like vampires are repelled by garlic. As it relates to, the stake, you know what I'm saying? Like stabbing them in through the heart with a stake, or anything associated with silver. So these are things that normally kill vampires in movies anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, she created a shield of protection with her magic and that was the thing. It was kind of like, that didn't really come back up. And then as far as, the character Sammy or Preacher Boy, it was like this, like he began to try to quote scriptures, and that was another spiritual aspect, but it didn't do anything because the vampire just started saying it along with him. You know what I'm saying? And then you get to the point where, okay, is the music going to be the thing that repels them? Or is the music going to be the thing? And then it's not that either. It's just like he slams them in the head with a guitar. You know what I'm saying? But like that don't really give us a conclusion to, okay, music was the thing that, they started burning when he started playing the guitar or something. Like, um, so I would have loved for it to be a continuance of the power of those things, but I feel like the vampires kind of overshadowed all of that. So I feel like plot wise, it was smashed together in a way that the story could have been told a little bit better. I appreciated all of the aspects of it. I feel like in putting them together, they kind of didn't go together as well. So and then when we got to the ending, of course you have, you know what I'm saying, the thing with one of the twins had been turned to a vampire. The hoodoo lady, she ended up being killed because, she ended up being bitten by the vampires, and then she wanted him to go ahead and end her life so that they wouldn't be able to take her magic and everything, which, that was definitely a crucial part. So then, you got Stack, and he's just kind of like, okay, well, if I'm going out, I'm taking all of these out with me, like, and I could appreciate that scene most definitely, because what else do you have to do with all of that energy that you just saw your brother, in essence, get turned to a vampire, the love of your life, you know what I'm saying? You just lost her in the midst of this whole thing. What do you really do now? And I guess really he was just like, it's time for me to get out of here. And so I definitely appreciated that scene as it wrapped up, and we began to look at the character of Sammy. He goes back into the church, and obviously he's been in a fight with a lawnmower, or you know what I'm saying, like something obviously happens to him. And, the first thing his father said is, you got to leave that music alone. And you don't really know what's going to happen at that point because so much has happened to him. He's really in a very vulnerable state. And then you see him, like, I don't know, should I drop the guitar and everything? But then you see him later on in life and he's playing the guitar and everything. And there's something that I feel as it relates to this. And it's kind of like a mystery of how it ended. You know, because you see his music as the thing that brought the vampires to the juke joint, it's kind of like, was his father right? Was the music demonic? You know what I'm saying? So like, you don't really get a clear answer for that. You don't really get a clear answer inside of the plot as to, was this really a good thing or not? Or did it end up being a good thing? Was his father right? What really was, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't really see the shining victory of the music and the essence of black music that he conjured in that room. You don't really get to see that anymore. You know, and then you see him as an old man playing and, you know what I'm saying, continuing to play the blues music, but I feel like that could have been more. So that's just the broad strokes of it from me. And I know that you know, I had a lot of different feelings during this movie. Overall, I feel like he put a lot into it. You know what I'm saying? But that's my the gist of my review there.
Bars. Okay. Bars. The story, from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
is Sammy recalling the greatest moment and the most defining moment in his life and in his career. So this old man who was about to transition
Mm-hmm.
is sitting in this bar looking back on his life, and this is his recollection of the events that took place.
Hmm.
So if we have that backdrop, the story makes sense to where there are things that you don't understand because they're not explained, because he's recalling it how he remembered it. He's an old man in dotage, and an old man in dotage is an elderly person who's experiencing a decline in mental capacity, often accompanied by behaviors like silliness, forgetfulness, or excessive affection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see how he shows himself in the story, it's almost insignificant. So he's in the background. So he's showing his older cousins as the heroes, right? They're the great ones. He's just in the back seat. He's just happy to be with his cousins. He asks his father for, I just need a day off.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And his father
Mm-hmm.
has the guitar waiting for him. His father has the guitar waiting for him. So he goes up on the pulpit and he recites some scripture from the Corinthians about temptation, right? And his father already knew what his son was going to do. So he tried his best to prepare him and persuade him to make the right choice, but ultimately it was his own choice. So off goes the prodigal son with the prodigal sons in the car. So now this is his recollection. He's taking a back seat to his own experience, even though he's directly involved. It's his story. So he's showing the story as if he's just along for the ride.
Yeah. As he's seeing it out of his eyes.
Right, as he's seeing
I
it out
get
of his
you.
eyes. So all of it is his story, right? So uh the brothers, those are his brothers slash father figures slash cousins, right? So you know when Hogwarts said, "You two twins or brothers?" Nah, we cousins. You see what I'm saying? So we like they said it like it's sly, but they are cousins to Sammy because this is Sammy's cousins. And before they leave, they said, "Don't worry about it, Unc. We'll make sure he's back in one piece," which they did. So the foreshadowing, his father said, "If you dance with the devil long enough, he's gonna follow you home." So everything that was said as a foreshadow became true. So again, he's an old man reflecting back on life lessons that he didn't understand at the time that
Mm.
become true. So if we look at it in reverse, if that scene was at the beginning and we just did it like a flashback, it would be something different. But that build up through it all has you focusing on these other characters as they develop within the story. So I think it was interesting that Ryan Coogler did kind of like a Tarantino kind of thing, who tells these stories, backwards, different points,
Backwards.
whatever. They begin at the end, whatever. And Spielberg, just a student of film,
Yeah.
right? And as a filmmaker and a deep study in regards to the world of film, he's portraying a story on its own from his perspective inside, but with elements that sprinkle from the outside because creatives are watching the film. Everybody's watching the film. The world's watching the film. So with that, he's careful with cultural nuances that the world ain't privy to, right? But what we do, we blab about everything. We go start saying this and that and that and that, and trying to share all of this stuff with people. Like, no, no. But that's how the raisins get in the potato salad, right? So he's telling the story from my perspective. I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just, my analysis says this is this old man in dotage telling this story about the greatest time of his life, the worst time of his life, and the most defining time in his career. The push and the motivation that he couldn't let go, that he had more motivation than ever to pursue his dream because people sacrificed their life for him to do it. So the whole thing was for him to get out, and he got out, and boom, that's what it was. So he returned back to his father's house, and everybody in there was praying for his safe return, and he walked through the door. So his father is redeemed. That place is redeemed. The black church and its root in spiritualism is something out of this world that's not really fathomed or looked at, because we look at the politics who have used this in a dirty fashion. So we don't think we're dealing with something spiritual. We're dealing with a very spiritual people that inhabit this place and bring it and give it life. No different than the guitar, right? The guitar brought the life, but who gave him the guitar? You see what I'm saying? And who was in all white praying for his return? So as he walked in, his mama, his daddy, and his congregation is there. So he's not broken. He's not torn. He's not, I don't have a sense of self or anything like that.
Right.
He is there with his community and his people, but he's still cleaving on to a dream that he had that he does not relate to him, that came from his uncle and his father. If his father's up there at that pulpit, he's up in that pulpit for a reason. You understand what I'm saying? He's up there. He got pulled to his purpose. This became his calling and his way to affect change, because he had those dreams before, and the dreams maybe cost him his brother. He saw what happened to his brother. He was like, nah, fam, I don't want none of that. I'm gonna deal with this right here. You know what I'm saying? So all of the aspects of how the story is told, if I looked at it like that, then I have a better understanding of what's happening. Like, they don't tell you where Remick came from. You know what I'm saying? He just popped up out of nowhere. So people talk about like he's a fallen angel. Like, nah, it's just a camera angle. Like, somebody was on his ass. You understand? And he running for his life. So the nature's against you, and somebody on the earth who sees you for who you are, not for who you appear to be, is right behind you too. You see what I'm saying? So his only refuge is to manipulate some people who deal with identity politics or body politics, to manipulate them. And that wasn't enough. So when he showed them the gold, that's what they was thinking about, right? So what motivates people? So he's talking about how this entity, or these people in the South, how they saw us and how they dealt with us too. So he didn't escape how all of these nuances there. Oh, they'll party with you, but they won't fight with you.
Mm.
So these are the things that Sammy learned. Like they'll fight, they'll party with you, and they'll sell you some shit, and they'll be out there with the do rag and shit and twerking and dancing with your ass. But when shit get hot, they're like, "Hey, we gotta go. We gotta.
Yeah.
This is their thing, okay? So let's take our chopping out of the potato salad. Let's go. You understand? We gotta go now. So yeah. So that was just my initial kind of overview in regards to setting the story from my perspective in a proper context for it to make sense to.
I like that. I definitely think that brings a whole nother light to it because you do see that as the story.
Mhm.
But I think what you just did was to emphasize that it's kind of like you do see it, you see that this is him. Of course, you understand this is him because they show the scars on his face and everything. But I guess if you're looking at it from the perspective of him being the storyteller more so than him being the participant, then that does give another perspective to it. So
So deeper aspects you want to delve in. What you wait? While go on, what y'all deal with?
um I did a lot of research earlier. I wanted to look into a lot of interviews from the cast and interviews from Ryan Coogler himself to talk about his motivation as it relates to this and also some of the things that the cast felt as it relates to this particular movie. I watched the interview was like most of the main characters from the cast, right? And the lady that played Annie, somebody asked her, in you playing that character of her being the hoodoo lady, what was your connection to that? How did you feel or whatever? And of course, she has a father who is Ifa, or you know what I'm saying, from the Yoruba culture in Nigeria. And she said that when she started playing the role, even though hoodoo is, considered to be African American, we know that the roots of it are very much so African. And so she was saying that it brought her back to, be able to understand things about African culture and, the spirituality of Ifa. And, just seeing how similar a lot of the same things were the rituals or the blessings or the, you know what I'm saying, the different things. So I thought that was interesting that she talked about that, the similarities, and how it even kind of put her on a journey to understanding her family's spirituality, as a continental African, a woman that, her lineage is directly in Africa. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. Um, and it led me to kind of seeing, a lot of things as far as how many connections that we have. I watched another interview by Ryan Coogler. Now, this one was a little bit further back, like a couple of years ago. And he talked about Black identity. And he talked about the time period where he was putting together Black Panther. Now, around that time period, he talked about the concept of, really kind of needing more as far as tapping into, you know what I'm saying, African culture and everything like that, like as far as his connection. And so he told Marvel, like, hey, if I'm gonna do this movie, I'm gonna need to go to Africa like ASAP, bro. Like, put me on a plane. And they was like, I mean, okay, like, dang, we'll do it. Like, so he went to Africa and he talked about the concept of like ritual, right? And of course, he had the idea of ritual that Black people over here might have when they hear the word ritual. It's kind of like, oh, something really drastic or scary, or you know what I'm saying, something is about to happen. Because the dude told him, well, we have to go through a ritual. And he talked about the fact that they took him through the house. And he's like, oh, I see the old guys in here talking, you know what I'm saying, playing the game or playing a game like chess or whatever and talking to each other. He's like, dang, that's kind of how it is in my grandmama house. You know what I'm saying? And he talked about he saw the women in the kitchen cooking, talking, different stuff, and he's like, "Dang, And they go in the backyard, and it's the young people playing and all of this stuff. And then he said there was some young men, and they had some beer, and they was, you know what I'm saying. He's like, "Wow!" And he said, "Oh, what's the, you know what I'm saying? This is the ritual." And he said, "This is what we have been doing for thousands of years." And Ryan Coogler said, wow, this is what we do back home in my, you know what I'm saying, in America too, as Black people in America. And he said that the man said to him, of course, y'all are African. And that was really profound for me, because I think too often we try to find the differences amongst each other more so than finding the things that connect us. And I loved those aspects of this movie as well. You know what I'm saying? Which is the reason why it's like, no, don't cut that part out. Because I feel like it's so important for us to see that the things that make us have all of the swag and the magic that we have as Black Americans, you know what I'm saying? Like the source of that, what we was able to take from the source. And even though we went through all of these horrendous things, our African connection and the ability to continue to fight through all the stuff we was going through, we was able to make something beautiful from that, because we're African people, not, you know what I'm saying, not because, well, African people, whatever, but I feel like the African connection to Black Americans really should not be cut off. And I guess more than anything, that's the thing that I feel, because I feel like even when we saw in this movie and they showed the parts as it related to the musical connection, oh my God. I mean, to show just how much that same feeling and intensity and passion that they, you know what I'm saying, that you saw in the African drummers and the dancers and all of this stuff, you see that same intensity in how Sammy is performing this song, and you see that same passion, and you know what I'm saying? It's so much of a beautiful thing that it's like that line of connection is so imperative. And I think we can't erase that. And it was interesting to hear Ryan Coogler even express this himself and say, even after all of this time, we can't be erased. All the greatness that comes even before slavery, it cannot be erased. Not by us, not by white people, not by all the oppression that we've went through. We can only erase all that if we allow it to be erased. So, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. Our identities and our fates are intertwined. We're twins of one another. So the twin destiny. You got one brother who is light, and because he's light, one has to be heavy. That's the
That's true.
contrast. So because one is dark, the other has to be light. But it's not in the absolute. It's similar to the yin and the yang. This is why the Asiatics were mentioned, okay? Because they personify that yin and yang symbol,
That's
even though
true.
they don't live it, but they
Represent it.
represent the symbol, right?
Yeah.
So there's the overarch in between. It's not 50-50. You see what I'm saying? There's a part where one extends into one and the other extends in the other. So, if we dealt with what we were given here in the wilderness of North America, who is the original man? Question. That's the question. The answer is the original man is the Asiatic black man. So you got the Asiatics and you got the black people in close proximity to one another. So this lends to an identity that's there. In their mind, the whole world was Asia. You see what I'm saying? So this Asiatic black man, if you look at the Pan-African flag, it's red, black, and green. Afghanistan flag is red, black, and green. And it's in Asia. So if we start looking at the Asiatic black man, it's not just in a colloquialism that's distinctive to the Nation of Islam, lost and found lessons, student enrollment. It's in life. You can find it in nature. The Palestinians have Malcolm X on the stamp. You understand what I'm saying? So when we start looking at the Asiatics, we find that there's something interwoven. Bruce Lee studied all black fighters, all of them, to develop his style that he sold to the world is Jeet Kune Do. And
Yeah,
he has Jeet
absolutely.
Kune Do because he was not a master of Wing Chun. If he mastered Wing Chun, we would never know anything about Jeet Kune Do. And where he ran afoul to the Asiatic world was that he had black students, quote unquote.
Mm.
So these are all things that kind of coincide together, even though, you know, the childs don't, like, there's something that's there with them, but understand that there's intersectionality with the cultures, with the native culture, with the quote unquote Choctaw.
Mm-hmm.
There's a love-hate relationship between us and the 5 civilized tribes as a whole. We must remember that black captivity stopped with white America in 1865 to 1870. It stopped with the natives in the 1930s. So the 5 civilized tribes had black people in captivity until the 1930s. So we have to bring that to our material view. Like, this is documented American history. I don't know if y'all was falling asleep in, social studies or American history, but with the Indian Removal Act, they were allowed to keep their quote unquote property with them. And this is how we ended up in Oklahoma for quote unquote Black Wall Street. So we have to take into account that we're surrounded and circled by enemies all around, but we have a through line in between the cultures based on admixture and based off of this intersectionality of power, influence, and breeding. So we have to look at this experimentation called America and see it for all of its spaces. Northern Africans went into Europe for 700 years. The last place they were expelled from was Ireland in 1492, and in some dates all the way up to 1555. So the red hair and the freckles was proof of an admixture. If you had red hair and freckles, you could withstand the sun, where everybody else would burn. So with Remick being, quote unquote Irish, he could withstand the sun, but the sun was still his enemy. You understand what I'm saying? So these are all of the things that they show that are undercurrents. But when we have a comprehensive understanding of who we are and how these exploits dealt in the realm of the world, we could see ourselves from a whole nother view. So these things are there. And I want to ask you this, because this is kind of like a sidebar, right? The Latin folks was upset because they didn't have no representation in the film. Like, they was upset with Kendrick when he did that concert on Juneteenth and they didn't allow none of them to perform, right? So, I want your perspective on that. So it's just interesting how they're showing the world, and they show the world through the eyes of this old black man reflecting on his young black self and seeing who was there and why they were in the Mississippi Delta, an oasis, like a Garden of Eden for black people. And we knew it not, but the world knew it because everybody and their mother was trying to get a hold of that and have it as a stronghold. So the blues singers and the nightlife was something that attracted people from all across America. That's why they were at the train station. And to be a Pullman porter, like I said earlier, to be a Pullman porter, black man on that train, you could take care of your family. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? They were well taken care of. They ain't see you much, but you were taken care of. So with them being at that train station to go see Delta Slim, and you seeing Pullman porter, like that's that Pullman, that's something different, and what it meant in the South, and what that train meant for black families, sustainability. was unparalleled. So just like if you remember that movie, The Harder They Fall, they had Chadwick Boseman's name on that train.
You said which one?
Pullman, The Harder They Fall, the Western.
Okay, I don't think I saw that.
Okay. Well, they had Chadwick Boseman's name on the train. So they
Okay.
had the Pullman name on the train on purpose because it's historically accurate. You see what I'm saying? The Choctaw being there at that time is not historically accurate, but understanding that that representation was necessary to show how the entire planet benefits off of us being in this position where we're looking at ourselves as dispossessed and downtrodden and degenerate, and we don't see the value in ourselves while everybody could find it. Him playing the guitar could raise the dead. You understand what I'm saying? Quote unquote, the dead and the undead. So, and folks in the afterlife, everybody, not just his own people, everybody that's there. So it was just interesting that story. But I'm gonna be quiet because I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this fake outrage. The Latinx folks not being included in the movie.
Well, I think America in general, and those of us who live here that may not originally be from here, right? Like, so Black people, immigrants, different stuff like that. There's been a entitlement, I'm going to say, and I know that that's going to be a hard word to use in this, but I'm going to go with it. An entitlement as it relates to, well, we need to be represented, even in places where we may not need to be represented. I would say Black people do it as well. I would say in some places we don't need to have representation. You know what I'm saying? So I think their outrage at this movie was kind of one of those things, because if you look at it as a period piece, in that particular area, was there a great presence of the Latin people in that area at that time? And if there wasn't, just for the sake of being in the movie, there really was no reason to, for them to be there if it wasn't historically accurate. It's kind of like, what would have been the reason, just to make sure that they don't feel discluded? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the outrage is really kind of not necessary. There are so many movies. Like if we was talking about somewhere like California, or if we was talking about somewhere like Texas or somewhere like that during certain time periods, then I could understand that. But we're not talking about somewhere where there was a great Latin presence, at least as far as I know. So I guess that's really what I have to say about that. That kind of caught me off guard. Like, what would they be mad about? Like, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty bugged. See, the thing about it is, when you see a lot of films, you get a chance to see all of them. So this film pays homage to Dusk Till Dawn. And in Dusk Till Dawn, these two white dudes is in Latin America, quote unquote. You understand what I'm saying? They in Latin America, quote unquote. And these are vampires, and they're in the bar, and they got to make it till sunrise, and all of these things all together. That's the undercurrent of this film for where the vampires are. You see what I'm saying? So they're in this juke joint versus being in this Mexican bar. And they got to make it till sunrise. And they're two brothers. And one of the brothers gets bit and becomes a vampire.
So they feel kind of like this story is taken from okay, that makes sense. That kind of adds more context to it.
So
okay. I still don't necessarily feel like they had to be represented in this movie, but I could see then, I guess, their outrage or why they would be feeling that way if they feel like.
You did enough. Yeah, it's okay. Go sit down, fam. It's all right. Go tell people to watch Dusk Till Dawn or Desperado or
I mean
El Mariachi or any of those other films where you're over there. That's where you at. And we not like, well, how come we not in El Mariachi? But you like, how come we not in this movie? You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It
Yeah.
doesn't fit the time period piece that you so eloquently
And there
stated.
are so many period piece movies where they are part of it. Because to be honest with you, the Latin and Afro Latino people, you know what I'm saying, did become integral in certain, you know what I'm saying, parts of America. But it's kind of like for this particular one, there wouldn't have been a presence of the Latin people in this particular movie. So I guess that's the part that I'm not really getting, like, as far as why they would feel outraged at that. That's kind of like,
It's selective. It's okay. All right.
yeah.
Um, all right. So let's switch gears real quick on some Empress Eshe. Who is your most relatable, identifiable character and least most identifiable, relatable character for you?
Eh, okay, I'm going to say two characters, right? But I'm going to
Wait,
say
this
that
side was wait, hold up. The side? What was that
because
side was
okay,
like
because you're going to take me into a realm where I got to discuss something, and this is going to be something that, okay, for me personally is going to be me giving you some, I'm giving you some, a little bit of vulnerability here, right? All right. So, I'm going to say Annie and I'm going to say Mary, right? But for two, I'm going to say something that's relatable about both of them and something that's not relatable about both of them. Um, I'm going to start with Annie because maybe what's more apparent, I feel like, would be the factor of not just her magic, but I would say also her passion, I would say, for the love that she had for Smoke. You know what I'm saying? And you see that not in just the protective bag that she gives him, but just in how, she embraces him to her chest when he's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can tell he's overwhelmed and all of that stuff. And I feel like sometimes that is underestimated, just how much your love can be a magic for somebody, and it can be healing for somebody. It can be exactly what they need. And I think we as women kind of have fallen away from that art when really that's our power. We're able to give that love and nurturing and everything. So I thought that part was beautiful too. And I don't ever want that part to get skipped over. You know what I'm saying? But so I would say, as far as relatability, I love that about her character, and I would say I related to that. Um, of course, there were some things that I, could I would say that not that I couldn't relate to, that she is a different type of woman as it relates to um when it relates to spirituality, sometimes doing different things as it relates to seeing into the future and stuff like that. I've never really been the type person that, like, I want to look into the future and see if I'm going to die, or I'm going to look into the future and see what's going to happen. And I know that's really the only thing I can think of as it relates to, like, I wouldn't be able to relate to her. I wouldn't say she's the same as me because I have a lot of similarities with her. So I would say, um, if anything, that's the thing that I can think of right off the top. Like, as far as her doing the divination to look into the future to see what was going to happen, I would say that may not have been something that I may have done because magically, looking into the future and kind of trying to determine destiny. Sometimes you can change destiny by knowing what the destiny is. Um so that's that. As it relates to the character Mary, I felt like her character was a lot complex, right? Because of course she was obviously biracial. Um and she would be considered, somebody who would be able to pass, excuse me, for white at that time. So I would say the thing that I can relate to the most about her, of course, I'm not biracial, right? But this is where I'm going to open up a bit as it relates to being lighter skinned and being most definitely looked at as different because of that. the type of alienation that you feel when every conversation you try to have with Black people, of course you're Black too, but then they're like, oh, and you don't understand because you light skinned. You know what I'm saying? And I went through that a lot, even though I think my family kind of tried their best to shield me from that. I'm the only light skinned one out of my siblings. Everybody else is chocolate. Out of 7 siblings, and I'm the oldest. So what's the very first thing people are gonna assume? You must have a different daddy. And I don't, but both my parents are chocolate. I mean, I can see why people would think that. So I can relate to that feeling of being an alien amongst Black people where they automatically kind of write you off. They automatically, if you're amongst men, they have their assumptions as it relates to what type of woman you are because you're light skinned. And then when you get amongst women, they automatically assume you think you're better than them. They automatically assume that you arrogant or that you know what I'm saying? And so when you're around Black women, what they expect you to do as a lighter skinned woman is kind of bow down. So you don't really get to say, well, I feel like I'm beautiful too. It's like everybody in the room, they head snaps to you and it's like, what? Because if you don't say, but I think y'all are more beautiful than me, it's like there's a level of offense. And like I grew up under that shadow to where as a grown woman, and this is just like I said, this is a little bit of vulnerability. It took me a long time to be able to feel like I was beautiful or that I was allowed to say I was beautiful because even growing up, and especially because I grew up in the Pan-African community, it was like the darker, the more beautiful. That was just it. And so I did have an innate feeling of like I used to do this. Don't laugh at me because this was just my idea at the time as a young girl, as a child. Okay, this is what I was thinking. I was like, I'm just going to sit out in the sun. I'm going to sit out in the sun for hours, right? My ass was burnt to a crisp. I was like, my skin was so stiff, I could barely walk when I walked in. And if anybody ever wonders if light skinned people can get sunburned, okay, now that answers your question, okay? Because I was messed up. I was so messed up. And I was just like, I have to get chocolate. Like in my mind, like that was what I was trying to do, but it ended up being damaging for me. So if I have to say I relate to her character in any way, like I said, again, she's biracial. I'm not biracial, but I relate to, you in a place and everybody kind of looking at you like, you know what I'm saying? Like you Black, but you not Black. Because if you ever say, yeah, I went through this, they like, nah, but you didn't go through nothing because you light skinned. You know what I'm saying? So that was really that's something I can relate to. As far as what I can't relate to is the fact that she did kind of lean into passing for white. And that's something that I never did. I never was the person who was like, you know what I'm saying, played into the light skin stereotypes or like, on my father's side. And what's interesting is I actually didn't find this out until much later, but my great grandmother was a white woman. She was German. And but I didn't go around saying like, oh yeah, but I got white in my family. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I embraced being a Black woman from the beginning and that's something that I still, you know what I'm saying? Y'all can say whatever y'all want to. You know what I'm saying? So I think if I was to say differences and similarities in the characters, that's where I would stop it.
So, who is your least relatable character?
The vampire dude, duh. I wouldn't say I have anything I can relate to about him.
All right, so I'm gonna play a little quick trivia with you
Okay.
for knowing what you know about me over all of these billion years. Who's who would you say that I would say is my most relatable and least relatable character?
Oh Lord. You put me on the spot, man. All right. All right, look, okay. All right. Um, I would say the most relatable character, I would say in concept, I would say Sammy. And here's why. I feel like you are a storyteller. You have such a deep, vast library of information that pretty much anything that we talk about, you have something that you can pull from to add to that, because you have so much information, you have dates, you have accurate facts, you have all of this stuff. And so the concept of him being the griot, and that's really what I'm kind of pulling from, the concept of the griot, right? And I feel like you are that. I feel like you are the storyteller, and you are the person that is, the keeper of the records, the keeper of the stories. And so in that sense, I would say, as far as relatable, I would definitely say that. As far as least relatable, see, it's kind of too easy, because there's so many characters that I could find reasons for. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm gonna go least obvious. I'm going to say Smoke. And I'm going to say, because he was more so very closed-minded to a lot of things. I think that he was very logical and sensible, but he didn't really leave room for much else. He's kind of like, I got to be the logical one, because my brother be on his own thing, and I just kind of got to keep things on what I know, and that's pretty much it. And I would say that that's the least relatable to you, because even though you do have all of that information, you always leave an open space for there to be other information presented, either that you don't know, or even if you don't agree with it. And so that would be my answer. Boom.
That is dope. That is
Oh yeah.
so dope. I'm telling you. The greatest scene in the movie for me comes from the character you said is least relatable for me. The greatest scene in the film. When them Klansmen showed up and thought they was gonna find some pickaninnies to shoot and to hunt,
I figured you
they
might say
didn't
that.
realize that they was in the trap.
Oh yeah.
And he was warned. He was warned. And over the years, Ryan Coogler, he did some films. I'm like, fam, come on, fam, come on, fam, family. Mr. Coogler, sir, brother, Ryan, right. What's happening? Yo, fifth floor. That scene of redemption.
Yeah.
Under a black pen. I told your ass, if you showed up here, I was going to deal with you. Not we was going to deal with you. I was going to deal with you and everybody you brought with you.
And he did.
Have you not heard your word shall be bond regardless to whom and what? Answer, yes, my word is bond, and bond is life when I give my life before my word should fail.
Because when you see him sitting there rolling a cigarette and stuff, you don't really know what he's going to do next. You know he's in grieving. You know he's going through all this stuff. But that's a lot of energy. That's a whole lot of built up energy. But you don't. So when you see him open the box, and you're like, oh, that's what he's about to go do.
Everything else existed. Like everything else that happened, you traumatized, you horrified, you cheering, you don't know what in the world is going on. Then you like, what do you mean unfinished business? He gonna kill himself? What are you gonna do? I don't know. What are you gonna do? He's just sitting there. He can't roll up a cigarette and shit.
Right.
And why you pull that bag off? I thought that was his protection. And you know what I'm saying? So you going through the myriad of the night.
And you don't understand why he does that until you understand why he did that. Like, oh.
So
because he's like, I'm going out, but I'm taking their ass out with me.
Every last stinking one of them. I was like, beautiful. I'm telling you, I said thank you to every God that I know and every God I don't know, because don't paint the contrast of Mississippi that's regulated to a couple of isolated incidents. You understand what I'm saying? there's a long-standing history of Mississippi with fight, not flight, with fight.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me seeing Queen Mother Mamie Till, peace and blessings be upon her, advocate for Emmett, Chicago, Mississippi situation, right? And her in Mississippi. And seeing Michael B. Condon with the, you know what I'm saying, and Sammy with the, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that youthful situation exacting cinematic vengeance.
Yeah.
That's the representation that, okay, we just came back from World War II. We in
Yeah.
Chicago starting the ship between the Irish and the Italians. You understand what I'm saying? And we got away, and we back with the loot, and we about to put it back where we from type of situation. And we prepared to exact punishment on anybody that's standing this way. I said it, I meant it, and I'm prepared to prove it.
Yeah.
That scene right there with that militaristic mastermind from the grassy knoll, I was like, is he gonna stay there and pick off everybody? Like, nah, I'm up close and personal with this, with everybody. Everybody's gone. You driving away in the truck, grenade, bomb. I said, oh, and I'm still shooting.
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Like it's a beautiful situation. He gets shot, whatever, and he used that submachine gun on that bastard that he told at the beginning. I got your ass. I got you.
Oh yeah.
You
He lit him
understand?
up.
Like I told
He
that.
lit
Yeah.
him up.
Hogwood. Okay.
But you
Hogwood.
know,
I got face to face. So it was beautiful.
one
It
thing
was a
that I
beautiful.
loved about that scene too is the fact that you see him um seeing into the spirit world and seeing Annie and seeing their baby. And I thought that was so profound too, because I think you don't just see him like, oh, he's going out like a martyr, and he just is like, no, you see him in essence rising to a paradise where he's
Right.
with, you know what I'm saying, the woman that he loves, and their baby who he had been grieving the loss of and everything too.
Right. Right.
So I thought that was a beautiful closure to that scene, because it's like he won.
Yes. So collateral beauty in real life is the loss of a child and the relationship suffers. You know, they say most couples, I forgot the percentage right now, but most couples don't survive the death of a child. So, yeah, it was just interesting how that was there and their strain on their relationship. And when he said it, it hurt to come back here. You know what I'm saying? Like he said that to her. He said, it hurt to come back here, but I love you and I missed you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It
and
kicked
she
me out
told
for
him,
a second. It kicked me out. I'm back
look,
in.
look,
Yeah.
look, hate himself. You know what I'm saying? One of them sauerkrauts or one of them raisins
Right. They
was
out to
hate
get me.
with their chow mein. You know what I'm saying? He was like, "You gonna make me say it?" When he told that woman, he looked at that woman. You gonna make me say it? She said, "Elijah." Woo! My soul and my heart became one in that moment. Okay, she said, "Elijah." So Elijah and Elias, they women, it wasn't no game. They ain't played no game from the overworld to the underworld, right? So that collateral beauty aspect that they spoke on and the post traumatic stress disorder
Yeah.
that they spoke on, that was
Because I
there.
heard you saying, a lot of couples don't make it through the loss of their child. And
Right.
and that was profound, because you're definitely right about that. Like a lot of the times when something like that level of high trauma happens, we're not really equipped in our relationships to really be able to come back from those things,
Mm.
you know. And a child is something that's so, connecting to both of y'all is something that's so, both of y'all are equally as invested in love with this child. And so if you can imagine, the grieving probably you know, ends up coinciding with each other and maybe even causing a lot more conflict because both of y'all, are dealing with your own feeling as it relates to that.
So the storytelling aspect that you spoke about with Sammy was definitely a powerful tool. And that's how I deduced the situation to actually make sense. So
Mhm.
Sammy telling this story, he met the love of his life that day. And he lost the love of his life that day. And he wasn't with anybody at the end of the film. So everything that he wanted, he got what he wanted. His dream come true at the expense of everybody that he loved.
Yeah.
So when you ask without condition about what you're prepared to give, God will give you exactly what you ask for. But are you prepared to pay the price?
Yeah. At what cost? Exactly.
Yeah. So it was just really interesting to me that perceptual perspective because the people was like, oh, Perlene, blah blah blah. Perlene was in a situation, and I love to hear your thoughts on this. She was in a situation where she wasn't seen, so he saw her, and he looked at her, and she recognized that look, a look that she longed to have a black man look her in her eyes and see her for who she was. Didn't care about any of these other situations that was going on. He saw her. I recognize you. You sing. He recognized her and he recognized her gift at the same time, and he spoke to both.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And this is a young man, right? This is a young man who sees his love interest. He sees his whole life with this woman in her eyes, in her smile. And he invites her out. And she shows up. She's older than him. She's in a relationship. It's something compelling, regardless to what that was. We don't know nothing about the husband. The husband could have been off the war, or he could have just been dead to her in her mind. And that was a space, right? But something compelled her to come there that night, and she saw the man of her dreams in him. And their bond was based off of their love for their gifts. Him with that guitar and her on that stage singing and doing what she needed to do. So him singing for her that song. Okay, I lied to you, Papa. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm singing to my woman right now. Okay, I need to muster all of this energy, and that Black Love Ballet was something that conjured all of the spirits of the world. So it wasn't just the guitar alone or his voice alone. That declaration of that invitation of our ancestral spirits to join this Black love union that they have brought together. It was unlikely. In any other circumstances, it wouldn't have happened. He tried to play himself up like, yo, these are my cousins. So, so basically this is my place too
Right.
type of situation. Whatever it was, there was nothing like the elder with the reputation, Delta Slim, passing the torch to the younger version of himself that was innocent. Tell him where you from now. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
he wants the people to know I'm one of you. We on the same level, but I'm about to get busy with this guitar and I'm going to show you better than I could tell you. So he's there connecting with this woman, right? And they connect. And then she get on that stage. Okay? She got on that stage. Okay?
Oh yeah.
So it was a beautiful experience in regards to the, expression of Black love being personified. And that was the extent of family. For me, anybody else was expendable, but family was not. You see what I'm saying? And that's not something that Remick could calculate. Oh, you just give us the boy. They just thought he was just the boy. He didn't know that that was kin or family and what family meant to them.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
family, quote unquote, meant the same thing for them. He didn't have a way in, but his way in was the one that was wayward. So when him supplanting the thoughts in her head, that's not something that she could let go. Because Stack said, let it go. She like, baby, let me go get this for you. And blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
but that was supplanted in her mind. So she thought it was her own thoughts and her own rationale. And that's what they were waiting for. They was out there strumming the guitar like, yeah, hey, she gonna come around the corner. Are you sure? Watch what I tell you. He said, we're gonna walk slow in case you change your mind. Cause that song and dance and that little limerick shit that they did, it was like, that wasn't enough. Get your ass up out of here. Go to another juke joint, go get some more. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got no time for that
And see,
bullshit.
before I had the understanding that they were Irish, right? I just was like, what would make them think? Like, I was so like, what makes them think that like nobody wants to hear that? But then it
But
was like, oh, okay, so these is like Irish songs that they okay, gotcha. Because I was like, what are they doing?
these was ballads that they got from the Moors.
Mm,
So it's not even their songs. They just vocalizing it in that way. Even with
right.
the song the Robin song, a black woman, that's a black woman song. They're just vocalizing it in their through their filter. So, they take and they remix and then they put it back out. So the industry is the real demons that are there that got a hold on black talent and the Delta, right? So, everybody was talking about Robert Johnson and he went to the crossroads and sold his soul, blah, blah, blah. They was talking about selling out. They were talking about selling out.
Mm,
They wasn't talking about at the crossroads dealing with the devil or dealing with Legba, dealing with Eshu, whatever the case may be. They're talking about uh, allowing the Jews rights to what you naturally do and paying you pennies on the dollar for it. So now when they seen him again, it was a whole nother thing that they saw
mhm.
because the Jews had a deep interest in the Mississippi Delta. This is where the Klan comes from. The Klan gets radicalized in that place because it's an oasis that's ripe for the Jews to come and take after the mayhem. So this thing in regards to these Jewish executives that's there playing knights in shining armor, and the Asiatics over there playing knights in shining armor, the Irish over there playing knights in shining armor. We're looking at ourselves and don't recognize the true knights that are there in the day and in the night. So a devaluing space because the issue of value was definitely present the entire time. So tell them
Mhm.
Chow Ming folks to stop trying to cut you off over here because I know you got a bunch to say.
I don't know what it is. Mm-mm-mm.
So was there any other aspect you wanted to hit on before they try to cut you off again?
Right. Um, as far as any other aspect, really, I think we covered a lot. And if there was anything that I would want to summarize everything by saying, I think that the spiritual connection was very strong as it relates to, being able to express it through music. I really wish that even would have been more of an emphasized point. I know we did see it, but I wish that it would have been even a little bit more emphasized. For me, I could have used more of it. You know what I'm saying? Just because it was such a powerful point as far as looking at the singer, the performer as the grill and the storyteller. And I think that that's such a beautiful aspect. I think even just showing, the concept of hoodoo, and really just kind of looking at the way that African culture was able to come here, and we were able to really still hold on to a lot of those ancient traditions and change them as time went on, as we needed to. I believe that that was really a beautiful aspect as well. I love the stories of Black love that were told inside of it also, because there was a lot of, those stories really, even though they were told in such a short period of time, you did see the intensity of those stories in the midst of it. um you know I felt like in the storytelling, because like you said, it was the story of somebody telling their story of how they saw it. But I think just in watching it, I feel like there was a lot of things that could have been better emphasized. There was a couple of things that I feel like, as the person that's watching it, because I feel like you have the advantage of having that understanding of seeing through that perspective of, this was the story of an old man that is telling his life story of this moment that happened to him. But I think that you came to that conclusion, right? But I think that everybody's not necessarily going to come to that confusion, and that there may have been some questions that were unanswered. And maybe that's why some people went to go watch it multiple times too. But it's kind of like, but overall, I do see that he put in a lot of work for this film. I do see how successful it has become. And I saw just, the standing ovation that he got amongst Black people for this film. So, most definitely I can say that, I'm glad for that, the fact that he was able to have success behind this film.
Most definitely, he deserves whatever money he get, uh, a thousandfold. And I would love to sit with him, and I would love
Hmm.
to sit with the cast, and kind of go through the whole situation with them live, because the lady that played Perlene, she also played Dr. Betty Shabazz. So
Okay.
seeing her in that strength, and this is me on my own unpopular opinion. I got one. Okay, I got
Okay.
one. I don't like folks from the UK or any of these other places playing
Hmm.
pivotal Black American roles.
Okay.
Pivotal characters from our history. They did it with Harriet Tubman, of all people. I was on fire. I was livid. I'm like, I'll get your ass up out of here with that BS. Okay, pardon my language, but that and Fred Hampton Sr. Those
Hmm.
roles are too important. You see what I'm saying? I just noticed a trend with a lot of that, blah blah blah. And they like, oh, you Pan African. I thought black was black. Yeah. Let me go beat James Bond, fam. Oh, I can't? All right, no doubt. So you don't have no business over here doing that. That's for me. That's a personal thing, because if we talking hoodoo, we talking the Black American experience, we talking about spiritualism. It could have been localized. She could have been the lady that came and sang, and this beautiful black woman from America who played Dr. Betty Shabazz could have been the root worker, instead of them painting her like she was some sort of
Hmm.
charlatan or she was some kind of Jezebel. Instead of her just being a black woman who found a man who could actually see her and loved her. He loved her with his eyes and with his actions. He loved every bit of her. You understand what I'm saying? And he didn't demean her, and he didn't over sexualize her. He loved her, and she loved him by the end of the night. They had a love for each other that will span across time forever. And he never found nobody that could ever replace her. That's why he's alone in this bar drinking, telling one of them stories to the bartender, because the bartender was a therapist. You understand? So you get in there, he
Hmm.
playing in his spot where he felt safe. and he telling a story that the bartender could hardly believe. You understand what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like, all right.
I could imagine somebody telling you that, and you're like, okay, this is your last drink, buddy.
Right, right, yeah. All right, Gramps.
Sure, the
Okay.
vampire.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, and then they walk in, and you can't recognize them, but you feel the energy. You're like, oh shit, maybe he. So this adds the layer to his story. These two people are still walking around, and they ain't aged none, and he looked like he 95, and they
Right.
they looking 15 walking up in the joint. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With the Coogler sweater on, with the Jesus piece and the shades and the lollipop. You understand? So it was interesting. It was interesting. So, any final remarks before we close? I thank you for this 2 hours. Okay, it was a beautiful 2 hours with you, right,
yeah.
over here, and sharing jewels. In between them trying to cut you off, they was hating a little bit today. Okay,
Just a
hating
little
a
bit.
tiny bit, just a teens. Okay, just a little teens. Okay, yeah. So, final remarks for you. Again, shout out your platform one more time where people can find that beautiful, amazing, situation. What you said at the end of your video. I'm gonna leave my social media and everything like I always do. Okay, like I always do. So, like you always do,
Oh
please
man.
let us know what it is.
Well, anywhere that you type in Empress Eshe Obasi, I'm going to pop up on all major social media platforms. That'll be Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm on all of those and also on YouTube. Um, so that's kind of like my main base of operation. So if you put in Empress Eshe into any of those, then I should pop up. Um, really, a lot of what I talk about, I talk about a lot of serious topics, but to be honest with you, I'm a person, I'm a woman, you know what I'm saying, all of these different things. So I talk about a lot of stuff from perspective of relationships and, just being the gender biases that we deal with as it relates to men and women, and some of the things that's not what you might think I may even be saying. I may even talk about current events. I may even talk about different things that don't necessarily pertain just to Black people. You know what I'm saying? Because I might be looking at some things in other communities that may indirectly affect us, or that may be something that we need to know about. I try to broaden as much as I possibly can the things that I see or hear or talk about or internalize, because really what it's about is education and being able to know as much as I possibly can. So with that being the case, you'll probably find a wide range of stuff on my pages and in my videos and everything like that. But it always leads back to what you can learn from me, and then I always invite you to hop into the comments so I can learn from you also. And I don't block out nobody's opinion. If they come into the comments, I might have a conversation with you or a discussion with you in the comments, but at the end of the day, I always appreciate when anybody comments, even if they're not agreeing with me, because I appreciate the conversation, the dialogue, and everything. And I think that's because I'm a true conversationalist. Somebody disagreeing with me doesn't offend me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but that is my platform on all the major social media platforms: Empress Eshe Obasi, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Um, I'm even on Lemonade and stuff like that. So, I'm hip. So on TikTok is where you might find some of my funnier stuff, because I really have gotten to the art of making the short videos and stuff like that. So, but a lot of my longer length videos may be on my Facebook and on my YouTube. And then, on my Instagram, I may have shortened versions of my longer videos. So all of that.
Bars. And you got a final word? I
My
know you
final
got
word
something fly.
is
Something fly.
Something fly. Oh man, you ain't have to put no pressure
Something
on me.
fly,
Hold on now.
something fly, something you gonna do it. You know, something fly, something real, something
No
whatever it
pressure.
is.
You
You
know
got
what I'm
it.
saying?
Yeah, yo.
And listen, something a final word would be, you know, looking at the world and looking at as it relates to our people specifically, a lot of things that we need right now is unity and we need healing. A lot of people think that we can just kind of skip past a lot of those things because what's being taught to us is separatism, you know what I'm saying, divisiveness, and that somebody else is at fault for what we're going through. But at the end of the day, even though somebody else might be responsible, you are still accountable. Even though somebody else may be accountable, look, I said it backwards. Even though somebody else may be accountable, you are still responsible to take action for what you need to do with your life moving forward. Just because somebody may have harmed you as a child don't mean that you are, they should be held accountable for that. But regardless, you are still responsible now as an adult to make sure that you move forward in a different way in your life and that your children don't experience what you had to go through. So I think that there's so much finger pointing that we don't get the opportunity to heal because we're so busy trying to blame it on somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So with that being the case, I would say accountability and responsibility are very key, because in that we'll be able to heal ourselves, and then we'll be able to heal our families, and then we'll be able to heal our communities, and so forth and so on. So that's my final word. Bars.
Bars. Mother Queen,
Explosive
Queen
bars.
Mother. Okay, magical matriarch in May on May 1st. It's a hurt in the mind. We got, catch a
I
baby, come
know.
on.
April went
Blow
by
the
so
cinnamon at your door. Oh, my bad.
Facts.
Yes. Yes. So thank you for your time. Thank you for
Absolutely.
your love. Thank you for your care. Honest to you. And that wonderful king out there, okay? They like, oh, she had picked me now. She got picked, fam. Okay?
Hell yeah, come on now.
You got picked, fam. You ain't get picked, fam. You
Oh,
out here
yeah.
talking this pick me stuff, and ain't
Come on
nobody
now.
picked you for the soccer team, fam.
Right.
Okay? You
And
you
I
you
have no
ain't.
complaints, and he has no complaints. Okay, thank
Hey,
you.
hey.
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying? So yes, honest to you, honest to your king, honest to your family, honest to your dynasty. You know what I'm saying? The Obasi
Come on now.
dynasty. Okay, I understand what I'm saying. Hey, why going where y'all deal with? You
Wow, go on.
understand what I'm saying? So yes, thank you for your time. I'm gonna be bothering you to come back this month. Okay,
Let me know.
somehow, some way, you know what I'm saying? We in the building. We could do a little something. You understand what I'm saying? Do a
Let's
little
do it.
something. Yes. So yes. Thank you. Mad love to you, mad respect to you, and keep building. And your platform is amazing. Okay.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Let the haters hate and let the raisins raisin. Just don't let them
I
raisin in the
mean,
potato salad.
if they want to eat potato salad raisins, but I know I don't.
All right.
Oh
And
no.
we got more in store, more coming soon. Right?
Oh
What
yeah.
they say, soon come. So go mind your business somewhere. Get up out of here. Leave us alone. All right. Peace.
Peace.
Hey yo, super Casanova, super cat promoter, lion, no fire glow, super Calliope. This is poetic dopamine, better than Coca-Cola. I'm dope, I'm mean open stream. I be choking cobra, snake charmer, brain macabre, ancient knock away karma, see the Rams day. In this diaphragm, diorama, Darno herbalist, moving diagram, watching my vision is panoramic, with it, it's botanic. Flower child, showered in clouds, my soul expanded. Life is a design, why didn't you know the planet? Polish rocks knowledge, my wisdom will coat the planet. I get it, I'm so demanding, supply, gotta cut the wire, run traditional umbilical cord inside the cipher as a baby, grab the mic instead of a pacifier. Melody appetizer, beware buyer, this is some rare fire. Sit in a chair higher, giving a spare tire. You're on your last lap like a stripper that just retired. Nah, I mean my queen seem to be sweeter than the papaya. I move far away from ninjas to wear blinders. Gold colored contacts, solar power guard rap. No one can doubt that I'm that lyrical exerciser, spiritual advisor, and I'm the kind of man that miracles admire. Minerals are minor, I majored in all required to complete the grand arcanum. Leaping the phantom quantum, Phoenician, the fire blossom. Come reach for this higher doctrine, Mayan, shaman, mind boggling. Reach to the time I'm all the skin, moccasins, forgotten sins. Common men, nature, eating, eager time, sovereigns. Making bullet points, lacking freedom is a problem. Carry extra magazines like they speaking in your column. I came from the center, never started from the bottom. Got your children in school, being smart is an option. Rhyme book, encyclopedia uses written in the margins. Listening to Marvin, sexual healing. My medicine is revealing that the stars in the sky got ancestors in the ceiling. Moods of Allah in my hand gestures. Zodiac gang signs, it's the grand netter. Time slipping through our fingers, bit of sand texture. Chandelier in the ceiling full of ancestors. Moods of Allah in my hand gestures. Zodiac gang signs, it's the grand netter. Chandelier in the sky full of ancestors. Show you clear, maybe you can understand better. Yes. Zodiac lay shower me. Spirits from above, those who passed away flower me. A lost intelligence, I made out when they encountered me. Effortlessly writing new verse before you count to three. With a sound to see, a sight to hear, the taste of beauty. My ancestors in the sky told me make a movie. It's the mega Sufi, serve them like a mega Sufi. The grand makers open bars, I can make the zoo free. I'm giving season passes to the secret passage. Not a tunnel, but a chapter unreleased status. Slow gases, mine ain't fast enough to beat molasses. Midget at a strip club, arms ain't long enough to reach the masses. See the Phoenix resurrected if you read the ashes. Cross me, you'll be seeing axes. Reenactors needed atlas like IG tags. Meet me at the Atlas, put a train, bloodshot eyes from drinking out your reading glasses. Zodiac's name, crack your brain, rappers slain, master pain. I make hits, they making Cassius claims older than Apostle Luke age. Smoke pocket Luke Cage, the Bushmaster, Mussolini, Galactica. Houdini couldn't see me with a crystal ball, eagle, regal, seeking all lies to plot a dream for y'all. I push past the vision y'all look after. Clear while I'm the finisher here like wood lacquer. Shooting star, comedy type like good laughter. Heavy still like a waiter when I walk on with toast. God's called me on the power here, I'm talking with ghosts. Like sun rays in the seance, I slice like a radiant. Zodiac real estate, kingdom of the avians. He's so above us, they thinking that I'm Canadian. KZ the chosen A-bomb, I wrote the ape song. Magician that can open they palm, exploded napalm. King Kong, Kami high, exploding ape palm with granite countertop. Holding wishes in my palm, I granted Megalodon, Megatron, and stretching my mind's height. Tap the splitter, subtly, I'm Gregory hindsight. Moods of Allah in my hand gestures. Zodiac gang signs, it's the grand netter. Time slipping through our fingers, bit of sand texture. Chandelier in the ceiling full of ancestors. Moods of Allah in my hand gestures. Zodiac gang signs, it's the grand netter. Chandelier in the sky full of ancestors. Show you clear, maybe you can understand better.
Knowledge bone. What's the science, baby?
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. That in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get
And
back
that
to
motive
the
is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.